Okay, so you tuned in today, and here's some guy randomly wandering around in his backyard. Thought you were going to see somebody building something out of styrene. This is just a quick little blurb on how I actually try and get some of the details on what I'm building. Now, if you actually look at the front end of this is a 1978 Chevy or GMC motorhome. So it's got like the standard 350 blocking engine. I'm not sure if you can see in there. There's some details I'm trying to fabricate inside. Got an alternator in there, a couple of headers. This is one of the ways that I try and figure out what I'm building. Okay, so that was one of the ways I sort of pick up on trying to figure out how I'm building something and what I want in the end. I was going to take you guys over to the local pick and pull, but I really don't have the time or the energy to get that far away from home today. So I'm going to just get started. I'm going to work on the next step of this. I'm going to pull out a couple screws. These ones here are the ones in the back of the diff brackets. I'm going to pull those out, and I'm going to pull these two out here, this one here and this one here. They have a mount lower down, and while I'm at it, I'm probably going to pull the arms of the battery tray off, because this bolt is actually holding this battery arm on. And I'm going to snip some of the zip ties on the electronics here, this one here, just so that I can pull them back a little bit further. Right, they'll end up back somewhere here in the rear of the cab, because there's more room back there than there is up in the front engine when I get to doing some of the detail. And this little zip tie will actually get in the way of the plate that I'm going to put on here once I'm back to fabricating again. So I'm going to do some of that, and I'm going to sort of play around with this servo, see if I can adjust it, maybe move it in a little bit more so that it doesn't stick out the side of the body when I get fabricating. So I've taken as much electronics as I think I need to get rid of. I've got speed controller, all sort of wires out, and this waterproof receiver box. I like this box, but I think it's a little bit too big to go inside of this build. So I'm going to try and fabricate something to go around this receiver. I'm going to throw the receiver into spare servo boxes. There's a bench tip for you guys. Don't ever throw a servo box away. They make great part containers. So all of my pieces that I'm pulling off are going to end, and I'm reusing, are going to end up going into this box. Got some extra screws. Anything I pulled out of the top plate of this, you see, if you can see, it's sitting loose right now. I'm going to use these holes to bolt into, but I'm going to use the existing screws just to save me a few bucks in the long run. I mean, you can pick these up at any local hobby shop, but you're going to spend another $4 or $5 just getting screws to rebuild this. So if you got them, you might as well use them, right? Okay, I've got another couple pieces cut here. There's 4 pieces on this one. These are actually, this piece here is actually going to go onto the chassis somewhere about here. And this long one's going to go on the other side of the belt. I got to stay clear of that belt, because if it happens to rub or anything, it's just going to cause excessive wear. And in the long term, that would be bad for this rig once it's done. I don't want to have to be replacing belts and pulleys and all that stuff too often in this. I'm hoping to get it fairly durable when I'm all done. So this is just another little thing I'm looking for when I'm fabricating one of these things. A couple more pieces here, and I'm not sure if it picks up on video, but there's actually a little bit of a dip in this top plate. This part here is actually taller than this part here, so when I screw the back side in, I'm just going to glue another piece underneath. It's about the thickness of 1.5 mm styrene from here to here, from this piece to this piece. So if I put these back here before I put this piece on, it'll just flatten everything out in the long run, and then I'll have a nice solid platform that I can continue building on. Alright, a couple more pieces. I think this is probably the reason that most of you have tuned in here. This is actually going to be the start of the engine. That's actually going to be the front of the engine. This is going to be the back of the engine. It's just the engine block right now. I'll do header covers and headers and all sorts of details on it later, but I need a box to sort of start building some of the details on. These are going to go on the front of this rig here. Let's pan up a bit. Some camera work. There we go. Okay, this is going to go somewhere about here, and this one's probably going to come back here somewhere, right? And then these three pieces that I had here are actually going to build a box up and over and around this pulley. That way it's completely covered and I can build whatever I want without having to worry about this after this. I'll have to worry about it again when I start building the cab, but for now, anything between these two plates is probably going to be problem free. Just a quick note on any of the gluing I'm doing. I told you about this block of wood being a tool on one of the last videos. Anytime I'm ever looking to keep anything nice and square and true, which is kind of key when you're working in this kind of detail, I actually use this block to glue and clamp my pieces up. This is the side of one of the covers on the top of this, and this is actually the top of it. But when I glue it, I'm going to drop my glue in between the two pieces, and when I glue it, I'll push in and clamp it nice and square, hold this piece in so it stays nice and flat and square when I'm gluing it up, and it'll end up making my process all that much easier in the long run. Okay, so this is all glued up now, and I happen to have already gone ahead and cut another 5 pieces. This is going to be the top of this engine block, and I've only taped them together just to give you an idea of how they will kind of fit and wrap around this. I'll put them on one piece at a time, but let's get in here. If you can see sort of how this will wrap around and form the actual base of this engine. I'll have probably valve covers here, maybe a blower or a carburetor up top. I've also, when I put this on, I left some room between this front fairing I did on the last videos and in here. I need to get access to these 2 screws just to remove the whole thing. So I've left, well, it's about a 3/4 of an inch gap, no real actual measurements. And I'll disguise some of this with a couple of big belts and some pulleys. I'll try to make sure to leave room for the 2 screws so I can just pull them out whenever I want to disassemble this and gain access to any of the belts or anything like that inside. So I'm going to glue this assembly up, and we'll come back and I'll show you exactly what I've got. I'll take the front fairing off and give you a front view of what I've been working on. Okay, so this is all glued, and it actually looks kind of like that on the front. This is just the engine block. There's more detail to go on here again. So I haven't sanded any of this down yet. I'll trim off some of this, trim off some of this. I cut these a little oversized so that I could actually have fairly tight joints. So when this piece goes on, it gets trapped in by this piece. I'll trim this, give it a quick sand. I'll come back, show you how it looks when it's all sanded up. Okay, and there you go. It's already loose. I pulled the screws out of it, and as you can see, it's simply the front end of an engine block, and it's got a groove down the center to make sure I don't touch this pulley when I'm running it. Fairly simple. I think that's about enough for today. Next video I'll start doing some details, maybe the headers, and well, probably not headers yet. I need the body on before I get into doing headers. But I'll probably do a carb and maybe some valve covers, a couple belts or something like that. I'll give you a few tips. I'm not going to do all of the details on this, but I should give you the gist of what I'm aiming to do with this. And if I don't show you something, it's just simply because I don't have time to do it on film. It's taking me way more time to video this than it is to actually build it. I'm hoping to get a couple more of these built out. There's been a couple of you ask about buying one or purchasing one. If you're actually serious, message me. If you think, okay, it's only $100 body, it's not really worth my time to build you one. But anyways, give me a shout, like, share, subscribe. You know the routine.